Alright, so let's continue our discussion here. This is actually the lesson number 6 in Arduino level 2. Let's talk about the digital tube here. We will try to compare and contrast the 4 digital tube to a 7-segment display. And we will be defining 4 digital tube as well. If you can still remember the 7-segment display from midterms, of course, kukunin pa rin natin yun. We will still try to use that code and try to modify that in 4 digital tube. Now, ano nga bang 4 digital tube, di ba? Usually, nakikita natin yan dito sa mga basketball na gumagamit ng mga clocks. Kagaya nito, di ba? We have here an example of clocks. Nakikita ninyo. So, when we say 4 digital tube, yan, and it's actually a 7-segment display as well. It's an SSD, yan, or the 7-segment indicator. It's also a form of electronic display device for displaying decimal numerals. However, the SSD, the 7-segment display, can only produce one specific number from 0 to 9, di ba? So, try nating i-recall yung nangyari nung midterm. So, napag-aralan natin kung paano nga ba gumana si 7-segment display natin. So, based on the corresponding highs and lows of a specific number, kaya natin mag-produce ng number na yon. Say, for example, kapag gusto natin magpagana ng 0, di ba? We have to turn on the A, B, C, D, E, F, and the G value is actually turned off, and so on. Kapag 1, the pins that are open is actually more on B and C lang, di ba? So this is actually a picture of a 7-segment display, and using this as a reference, determine which segments should light up in order to produce numbers from 0 to 9. So alam na natin to, di ba? We are already familiar, probably yung iba sa inyo kabisado to kung paano gumana, di ba? So always remember that the rotation of the colors is always clockwise. So from clockwise, ibig sabihin, from the top to right. Clockwise tayo. Hindi po pa ganyan ang rotation ng bilang natin. So from A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So for example, gusto mong 8 ang i-produce mo, so everything is actually turned on as well. So ganyan. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay? Now, meanwhile, when we say 4 digital tube naman, it's actually a chip to form a 4-digit numerical display module that are sometimes called as the digital tube. This actually looks like a 7-segment display, pero mas pinaiksi, mas pinaunti yung kaya niyang pins na or pwede mong ilagay na pins dito. 'Di ba? So dun sa mga may physical kit sa inyo, makikita ninyo ang difference ni 4 digital tube. Mas maraming pins, although kaya na mag-produce ng 4 na number. So we have here the D4, A, E, D3, D2, B, E, D, DP, C, G, and D1. So, meron pa rin yung A, B, C, D, E, F, G natin. Kompleto pa rin yan. However, there are some additional pins that we have to understand as well. Ito mga D4, D1, ibig sabihin nito digital 1, digital 2, digital 3, digital 4. Okay? So, let's try to take a look. Ano nga ba yan? What makes this digital display useful? This digital display can actually provide the right information at the right place at the right time. A well-programmed digital tube will deliver information that is relevant to the user. The digital tube can be paired with sensors as well to trigger content based on the external stimuli. This lets the user interact with the display to present specific content or, play games. Now, this is actually an example, okay? Gusto ko may pakita sa inyo how the digital tube works in Arduino. Although, here's the thing. Maybe you have noticed ngayon pa lang na wala pong wala po tayong 4 digital tube sa Tinkercad. Di ba? Kung napansin nyo, there is actually no digital tube. Type nga natin. Ayan. Wala pong digital tube dito sa Tinkercad. That's really unfortunate. That's why I suggest that this time you use what we call the walkwe.com, yung inintroduce ko sa inyo sa group chat natin, walkwe.com. This is actually an alternative. Okay? An alternative to Tinkercad. Ayan. So, meron tayong alternative pa rin. So, this time, pwede kasi tayong mag-add dito ng digital tube. But the 4-digit 7-segment display as well. This one. Now, you will notice na hindi dito kasi sa walkway na to, wala tayong breadboard na ginagamit. Diretso ang pagkakapin natin dito. So therefore, if you want to experience the 4 digital tube here on walkway, just try to understand, try to use this one kung paano nga ba siya gumagana. Pero it's actually almost the same with Tinkercad. Although the difference is that you have to like say for example gusto mong i-change yung color, no? Pwede pa rin naman. Yan. There is this JSON file here, the .json file, in which you can actually change the color. Yan. You can actually modify the contents of your file as well, or of your Arduino sketch. Diba? So, dito sa walkway na to, nandito kung paano natin gagawin si digital tube. Now, I have prepared here in your module the steps. This is actually much different comparing to this one. Okay? So, you might want to consider taking a screenshot. Siguro pag mapapanood nyo nito sa YouTube, try to take a screenshot of the following. This one, in your module, this is actually ginawa ko to sa may fritzing. Ito to, fritzing. Yung inintroduce ko rin sa inyo, no? So, there's also a step-by-step process on how to install fritzing. Although, kagandahan ng fritzing kasi mas malawak siya, mas maraming sensors na pwede nyo mailagay. During our time, fritzing is actually for free, but unfortunately, as of the moment, it's paid. May bayad siya. But, I think I have shared here the GitHub file. I-follow nyo lang yon, madadownload nyo kasi yung mismong source code ng fritzing, and eventually, kaya ninyo mapagana for free pa rin si fritzing natin. Okay. Now, this is how a 4 digital tube looks like in a sense ng Arduino natin. So, we still have the following pins. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So, meron tayong 6 na pins dyan. No? So, follow lang natin siya isa-isa. I have also indicated here the different steps on how to connect the following. So, you have to connect the D4 of the display to the D3 of the Arduino via 220 resistor. So, sabihin yan, pag D4, ito, diba? D4, connect daw kay digital pin number 3 with a resistor. So, try to do this on your own and try to use walkway. Pero, ang ano nito kasi, wala tayong, ang tawag dito, wala tayong, yan, itong digital one. Wala tayong, walang resistor, kumbaga, di ba? So, okay lang yan. Pwede pa rin naman kayong gumamit dito, ng breadboard. Ito, pwede pa rin naman kayong gumamit ng resistor dito. Yan, di ba? So, that's actually try to use this one as well. Itong walkway na to. Yan. Now, if we are done with the following, with this one, actually, I also have prepared a sample code on how to make this work as easy as possible. Dito muna tayo mag-focus, ha? Dito muna tayo mag-focus sa may module natin. In this module, now, for example, you are already done with this one. Ito. I have prepared here a set of codes kung saan, yan, pakita ko lang sa inyo. And let me explain what will happen kapag pinaganan natin to. Okay. This one. Alright. So, I actually started with the coding by simply determining or declaring an array named segpin with, a maximum of 8 different addresses. Ibig sabihin na to, we have here 13, we have 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 8. These are the digital pins kung saan natin nilagay si mismong natin. Okay? So, we have here, this simply means that this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, this is E, this is F, and this is G. The segment pins. Okay, this is the segment pins. I also have declared here another variable, which is dpin, with 3, 4, 5, and 6 as their digits. So, ibig sabihin na itong digital pin na to, yung D4 natin, D3, D2, D1. So, si D4, yan, pangalan yan is 3, D4 is 3, D2 is 5, D1 is 6. So, kung mapapansin nyo yung dito, connected po lahat yan dito. Okay, so for as long as you have followed this instruction or this, what do you call this one? This schematics here, of course, itong code na to gagana sa inyo on your end. Alright, so we have here the number of connected to, or number of pins connected to the segment. We also have the pin number connected to the digits as well. Next, this is actually the most important thing, yung segment natin. So you have here the A, B, C, D, E, and G, and the number. So, as you all know, if everything is turned on, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, if everything is turned on, and G is only turned off, of course, magpuproduce yan ng number na 0. If B and C is the pins that are only opened, according here to your module, yan, that simply means that it will produce 1. Diba? Kapag ka 8, lahat open. Nagets nyo? So that's actually the idea of the segment. So if I were you, you can simply copy and paste this part of the code. Okay? Hindi ko i-copy to, hindi ko rin ipipaste sa inyo because I want everyone to code on their own. Eventually, gagana naman to pag nilagay nyo sa walkbee. If you have your own Arduino kits, mas maganda, matatry nyo, gagana rin to. Okay? Yan, gagana rin naman yan. Okay, so that's actually the segment. Next, we have here the timer. This is simply for the delay. We have here the void setup, of course, in which inside the void setup, dito natin nilagay si serial.begin, di ba? So gagamit tayo dito ng serial monitor. We have here the for loop that will simply set up the seg pin. Okay? And since this is actually an output, digital tube is an output, so therefore, we have here the segment pin starting from 0. Sabihin, segment pin 0, segment pin 1, segment pin 2, lahat yun dideclare natin as segment pin 0 up to 7, and that is an output. Same goes through with the digital pin. We have 4 digital pins here. Okay? So, ang digital pin natin dito, saan nga, para saan nga ba yung mga digital pin na yan? Ito yan. Itong D1, D2, D3, D4. Sila yung magpapailaw. Ito. So, sila yung magpapailaw dyan. Diba? D1, D2, D3, and D4. Sila yung magpapailaw sa mga numbers natin. So, we're good with the setup. Next is for the loop. Etong loop na to, this is actually an interesting program. Okay? This is really an interesting program because this program that I have created for everybody is for everyone to enter the number to be displayed. Okay? So once they enter a specific number that they want to display, automatic, that number will eventually print inside the digital tube. Dito. Sa digital tube na to. Diba? Ang amazing nun. So, using this code here, you have a serial.print, enter number to be displayed. This will simply get the value of whatever data that we have typed and will be stored in the num variable. Dito. So, kaya nga tayo may serial.parseInt, no? Ito, nilagay ko lang to for the sake na para meron akong palatandaan na mag-i-start, okay? Mag-i-start yung serial monitor natin. This while code here. Next, I will simply print the number. Ayan. I will simply print the number of the sum, which is this one. I mean the num, which is whatever number na tinype ko. Now, here's the thing. If I typed a number that is actually in ones place, and in tens place, in hundreds and thousands, it will automatically, go to a specific part of your code. Ito, kapag ang tinype ko dito is like number 2 lang, the 2 will now eventually perform a modulo to 10 para yung number na 2 na yun mag-i-store kay D0. Ano nga ba si D0 ulit? Ito yan, yung dito yan. Dito, sa pin number natin. Okay, so this is actually a new variable, tong int D0. Pero dito natin yan kasi dineclare sa may setup pa lang. Okay, so kapag ka tens naman siya, yan, inano natin, 'di ba? Nagkaroon din tayo ng modulo, that's divided by 10. So for example, ang tinype mong number is 30. 30 modulo 100 is still 30 divided by 10. So the D1 value is actually 3. So eventually, the next digit is actually 0 as well. And so on. Ayan. Now, this is actually the part where we have an entire for loop. Kung napansin nyo, no, meron tayo ditong napakahabang for loop. Saan to? Ito. Meron tayong napakahabang for loop dito from here up to the very last part of your program. So this simply, what is actually being done here is for us to simply print, ito, digital write, for us to simply print the value that we have typed earlier. So kapag ka ang tinype mo is in thousands place, the value will now be stored in D3. Ayan, di ba? So it will now be eventually be printed here inside the segment pin, which is the segment pin is automatic. Ito yon, yung segment pin natin. Ito. So it will automatically determine the segments that are actually being opened. Di ba? So titignan niya yan isa-isa. Kaya nga tayo meron ditong for loop na lahat na napakahaba. So I suggest you try this on your own para makita nyo na gumagana siya. So, ayan, we have here the D pin. The first batch is for the D pin 0 is turned off and the D pin 1, 2, 3 is turned on. This is actually for the first batch. For the second batch, that's why we have a delay of 5 para makita natin na may delay ng konti yung pag-change ng number. We have here the entire D pin, which is turned on except for the D pin 0. I mean, D pin 1. That's for the second number. For the third digit, we have here that everything is turned on except for digital pin or the D pin 2. Yan. So, ibig sabihin, nagpo-produce tayo dito ng hundreds. And this time, nagpo-produce tayo dito for the fourth batch or fourth set of the digital write. We are trying to print a number which is in thousands place. Madali lang tong intindihin. Madali lang naman tong intindihin lalo kapag nakita nyo gumagana siya. Well, in fact, just FYI, saan ba yung module natin? FYI, that is, I think, related. There you go. That is related to your performance check number 4. So, create and program an Arduino sketch where the user will input their desired number and up to 4 digit in the serial monitor and will print the number in the 4/7 segment display digital tube. Kaya ako hindi kinode kasi gusto kong kayo mismo ang magpagana nito. Okay? So, screenshot natin. Siguro kung wag niyong i-upload sa GC kasi performance check pa rin ito. So, starting from the loop, we have from here. Anyways, makikita nyo pa rin naman to sa YouTube natin. That one. We also have this one. Hanggang dito. We also have this part of the code up to here. And we have this part of the code. Okay. So, hindi ko siya ginawa kasi once again, project nyo yan. Activity nyo yan. Alright. So, let's try to go back to our sa module natin or sa itong part na to. Now, this is also a different approach. Okay? Pero this will simply print the values or everything inside your digital tube. This is an incomplete version of the code. And somehow, masasabi kong brute force algorithm version of this code. Diba? So, I want you to take a screenshot of this as well. Pero this is actually, although a simplified version, pero brute force, ibig sabihin, isa-isa niya kasing tinatype. Ayun, no? Pin A is 2, pin B is 3, pin C is 4, pin D is 5, pin E is 6, and so on. So we have D1 and 9, D2, 10, D3, 11, D4, 12. Yeah? Medyo mahaba. Pwede naman, especially pagdating natin sa setup, pwede naman natin tong ilagay sa array. Itong mga to, yung parang ginawa natin kanina, di ba? We have a different array on pin A to pin G. We also have a different array on D1 to D4. In a sense of being a programmer talaga, especially once you graduated in college, napaka-importante na marunong kayong paiksi ng codes ninyo. Kasi for optimization purposes na rin yan. Diba? Now, for void loop, this is simply the way on how you turn on and you turn off the numbers. So we have here, if for as of the moment, the D1 is actually off, everything is on. So basically, kung gusto mo mag-print ng 0, nandyan siya. Yan yung code natin. So pin A is high, pin G is off. Ba? Kung 1, ganun din. Parang ginawa natin dun sa may mismong sa may mismong 7-segment display natin. So let me just para ma-screenshot ng lahat. We also have this part, which is if you want to print number 5, if you want to print number 6, we have if you want to print number 7, number 8, and number 9. But take note, you are only printing 1 digit. Ayan o, kasi ang or 3 digits. Ang naka-on lang kasi is 3. I mean, ang isa lang ang naka-high. Ayan o. Tapos 3 naka-off. Mali ito. Baliktad yan. Ayan, so hanggang number 9. Okay? So, anyways, you can simply take a screenshot of this one once na nakita nyo na siya sa YouTube natin. Alright, so let's try to work with a 4 digital tube as well. Pero madali lang naman ito. Ito rin yun, no? Ito rin yung kanina. So basically, this is actually how you do that. Now, let me show you another way. Kung talagang gusto nyo siya sa Tinkercad lang talaga gawin. There is also another way for us to create or convert this entire code. We can still use what we call the 7-segment display. I have prepared here a schematics or a diagram for everybody to follow as well. So kung gusto nyong sa mismong Tinkercad nyo siya gagawin, you can just simply get 4 different 7-segment display. Okay? So I want you to take a screenshot and kayo ang magde-decide kung alin sa inyo ang mas komportable. Pero ako, honestly, mas komportable ako sa 4 digital pin. Kasi sa 4 digital pin, andun as is na. Unlike dito, napakadami mong pins na gagamitin. Ayan no, pagkakaseparate yan. Diba? So, halimbawa, ito, 2 beses mo siyang ikakabit. Ayan no. Diba? So, medyo matrabaho. Pero, kung hindi nyo kabisado ang walkway, pwede nyo pa rin naman tong gamitin, si Tinkercad natin. But, you have to have like this one. Okay? So, you have to, parang mas maganda nga yung 4 na, di ba? Mas maganda nga yung 4 kasi mas madali, di ba? Compare natin yung kanina, ayan na. Actually, yung nasa module, asan yung nasa module natin? Ito. I prefer tong nasa module because the steps are also being published here. Unlike dito sa may ginamit ni Tech Factors, hindi nakalagay yung steps dito. Ako kasi na gumawa nito, itong part na to. So, it's all up to you to decide kung ano ang gusto nyong gamitin. Pero ako, I suggest, aralin nyo rin kung paano gamitin to. Although, kaibahan lang ito, wala tayong breadboard. Tapos, medyo iba ang magiging style kung gusto mong paltan yung kulay, kung gusto mong palitan yung value ng resistor mo, yan, as of the moment, 1,000 yan. So, kung gusto mong 220, pwede naman din. Diba? So, may JSON file ka kasing in-edit. So, 2 code ang ni-edit mo dito. Although, I have posted the link, like getting started with Walkway. Diba? Pwede nyo pa rin naman gamitin yan. Ma-change rin yung color ng lahat. Alright, so it's all up to you. It's all up to you. I'm just giving you an option. But if you want to have a challenge, go for this one. Go for the 7-segment. But in reality, if meron kayong physical kit, this is really halos impossible. Almost, next to impossible. Especially kung physical kit lang na isa lang ang gagamitin natin. This is almost impossible to do. Yan. Yeah? Sige, screenshot yan. And let me explain the code as well. Yan, naubos na ang wires natin pag dito. Although, 4 lang din ang resistors natin. 4 lang din, di ba? Yan. Ito naman, ayoko kasing gumagawa ng code na alam mo yun, yung gusto ko kasi laging object-oriented ang style ng code natin. And at the same time, gusto ko yung code natin parating optimized. So let me explain how the code of this one is actually working. So, the code of this one is somehow challenging. Ito ang kailangan nating i-code isa-isa. Kasi nasa, ano na to eh, nasa Tinkercad na. Yan. So, let me just explain how the code works. Yan. Dito tayo. So, we have here a void setup, of course, and a void loop. Tama? So, before the setup, we have to declare here the array to at least for the 7 segment, diba? So, lagay tayo dito ng comment na like, we have to make an array to save the 7th segment pin configuration of, anong isa-save natin dito? Of the different numbers. Of numbers. Yan. So, parang yung kanina, yung nilagay natin kanina, kung natatandaan nyo yung 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and so on, gagawin natin ulit yon. Pero this time, I would like to place here a variable with an address of 10 and 8 as well. Tapos, gusto ko na yung values niya, copy-paste ko lang yung kanina na code natin. Like something like that. Yeah? So, we have here 0. We have here 1, we have here 2, and so on. Yan. Okay. Next, we will actually create another variable that will simply store the last time LED was updated. So, magkakaroon tayo ng panibagong variable dito. Okay? So, pangalanan natin yan as previous millis, which is 0. Yan. We will also have here a variable that will simply count how many milliseconds is there between the state changes of the LED. So, meron tayo dapat ditong count up each millis. So, initially, the value is 100. Diba? So, int count up each milliseconds. Initially, yan, 100. And we have here a counter. Meron tayo ditong counter rate lang. 9010. Yung number lang. And we have here the max counter. Ano nga ba yung max number na pwede niyang ilabas? We have here 9999. Okay. So far, so good. Next, we have here another variables for the segments. Nalagyan ko ng comment, no, para sa lahat kapag ka pinapanood nyo na to sa YouTube or nire-review, okay lang. So you have here the segments from A to G and the DP. So we have here a variable which is A to D and DP int seg A to DP pinouts. Pangalanan natin yan as pinouts. And we have 8 different pinouts, which is actually from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Yan. We also have here the digit 1 to 4 pinouts, which is of course 4 lang naman yan. Yung kanina kaya 8 kasi nga from A to G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Tapos yung 0 natin. Ito, tong sobra. Nilagay ko tong sobra na to. Kung napansin nyo, sobra, di ba? Kasi nga, para may paglalagyan ako mamaya sa array. Yeah, digit 1 to 4 pin outs, which is 4. Tapos equal to, simulate ko na to. Yan. Ayan, no. Ganyan na output niya, no? Pero mamaya natin i-ano na yan. Gagawin muna natin yung code. Digit 1 to 4 pin outs, which is actually 10, 11, 12, and 13. Ayan. Kung napansin nyo dito sa may simulation natin, ayan, nagra-run yung program natin, di ba? We started from 9010, tapos nagra-run siya paulit-ulit. Naglo-loop yan from 9010 up to the max counter, which is 9999. Okay, so 10, 11, 12, 13. And this is actually the pin outs. The pin outs for the digits, okay? For the digits of the 4-digit SSD. Yeah, magkakaroon tayo ng discussion ng video nito. After mismo ng klase, i-upload ko to. Okay? So, digit 1 to 4 pinouts. Okay. And next, we have here a function header which will simply call the following functions. So, meron tayo ditong apat or tatlong different functions or methods in Java. Turn off all segments. Ito-turn off natin sila. And we will try to give a parameter which is 0 for the delay. Ayan. We will also have here another void which is of course a function which is will turn on all the segments. And we will turn all the segments which is the delay minis is equal to 0. And we will have another function that will simply write the segment array to digit. Continue yan. Okay. So far so good. I think we're now ready to set this up before tayo pumunta sa may loop. Setup is actually the most important part ng ano natin. So first of all, we will now be setting the pin modes for the 7 segment and the display. Yan. So you have for int I is equal to 0 and I++. Yan. Diba? So ibig sabihin na to, i-set natin lahat ng from segment A to DP pinouts. Set lang natin siya lahat. And we will put here output. Diba? Unlike yung kanina, yung nasa PowerPoint natin, medyo mahaba yun. No? Matrabahong gawin yun. Kaya I suggest, matuto tayong maganto lagi. Okay? Matuto tayong mag for loop. Yan. Especially kapag ka nag-work na kayo as programmer, napakadaming time na hindi kayo pwedeng what do you call this one? Gumamit ng mga brute force algorithms natin. Okay, so you have segment A to DP. Yan. And next, we will now be setting the pin modes for the digits, yung apat na digit natin. So you have here int I is equal to 0. Oops. Hanggang 4. Tapos I++. Ayan. And, kagaya ng kanina, we have here the digit 1 to 4 pin outs, which will eventually start from 0. And, of course, that's an output. Tama ba yung ating mga pinaglalagay na name? They should be exact. Digital 1 to 4 pin outs. Okay, so far so good. Alright. Next is for us to call the turn off all segments method. Yung turn off all segments natin, ito, ko-call natin to. I-call natin siya ngayon. So, after niyan dito. Of course, initially, di ba, i-off natin yan. Turn off all segments. Mamaya, ipapopulate natin kung ano nga ba yung mga nasa segments na yan. We will also call the turn on all segments. Yan. With a value of 100. Ano nga ba tong turn on segments natin? This is the delay milliseconds. Ano, the delay milliseconds. So, initially, meron tayong 0 as a delay. And this time, we will try to, to choose a value or place a value of 100. Kung napansin nyo, yung 100 na yun, ito yun. 100 milliseconds yung pagpalit ng number nyo. Diba? So, let's put a comment here. Cycle through the segments. Yan. Turn off all the segments. Hindi. Mamaya na lang tayo mag-cycle. Off ko muna yan. Dito muna. Yan. Initially, it's turned off. Tapos, magta-turn on. Let's place another delay. Delay sa code lang ito. Tapos, saka natin ulit i-turn off lahat ng segments natin. Yan. So, kung gusto nyo gumawa ng parang time bump, syempre, di ba, na like 3 minutes, pwede nyo gawin yan. I-set nyo lang dito yung mga pag-turn on, turn off ng segments niyo into like 1,000 milliseconds. Diba? Yan. Next, we will now be counting. Okay. We will try to count through all the numbers on each digit separately. Separately. Ayan. Count through all numbers on each digit separately. In order for us to do that, madali lang naman din to. Gagawa lang din tayo dito ng dual for loop kung saan i-count natin from the digit counter starting from 0 and mag-end up siya sa may digit counter natin up to 4. Ano yung digit counter natin dito? Ano yung dineclare natin na digit counter? As of the moment, wala pa. Because the digit counter will actually serve as a new variable dito sa ano natin. So we have a digit counter and we have another counter for the number. Mamaya, ito yan. So we have two different loops. Dalawang beses. So outer loop will simply check the digit counter. Yan. Which is 4 and the digit underscore counter plus plus. So anong gagawin yan? Every time na nag-check from 0, nag-i-start siya from 0, ayan, chine-check niya rin ng sabay si num counter natin. So we have here num counter is equal to 0, num counter which is less than or equal to the value of, ilan sila? 9, and plus plus natin. Para hindi kayo malito, yung digit po, ito yun. 1, 2, 3, 4. The number of digits. Number counter is actually the number itself, which is from 0 to 9. Bakit siya hanggang 9 lang? Because it can only produce 9 per, of course, per 7-segment display. Yung kanina kasi kung napansin nyo yung sa digital tube natin, minsanan. Di ba? Unlike dito, medyo mahaba-haba. Yung kanina kasi meron akong prepare lang na 4 na sets ng highs and lows. That's it. Diba? Tapos mag-enter lang kayo ng number. That's it. In this case, this is a different scenario. So, for every time we are counting the digital counter from 0, starting from this one, and nagpa-plus-plus din si number muna. So, ibig sabihin, parang nangyayari dito, di ba? Plus-plus siya. So, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for every turn on ng segments natin. Yan. So, kapag ka nalagpasan na yung 9, the digit counter will now eventually become 1 and ito na yung magpa-plus-plus. So, since nasa 1 na tayo, the number counter is actually incrementing as well from 0 to 9 and will now eventually, the digital counter will have another increase which is actually 2. Ito na yan. Diba? Tapos, yun, paulit-ulit lang. I hope nagigets natin yun. So, let's put here a delay of 200 seconds. This time, we will now be writing the segment array to digit, which is actually the challenge kung papansin natin. Number underscore array, which is the num underscore counter and the digit underscore counter. Yan. So, meron tayong write segment to array digits, which is ito yun, di ba? Write segment array to digit. So far, so good. Int asterisk to. Sabihin, there's no value yet. All values may be considered sa loob nito. Digit counter. Okay, num counter, num array. 1, 2. This is the end of the for loop. Let's put another delay. Yan. So far, that is the void setup pa lang. Okay? That's actually the void setup. Now, let's try to work on with the loop. Take note ha, loop na tayo. Meron pa tayong tatlong segments or tatlong functions na i-work out as well. So, dito tayo sa loop muna. Si loop naman, ito yung magpapaikot. So, the idea of this one is actually the same with the digital tube earlier. So, kapag ka nasa digit 0, iba. Diba? Pag ones, iba. Pag tens, iba. Pag hundreds, iba. Pag thousands, iba rin. So, we have here int digit 0, int digit 1, int digit 2, int digit 3. Ganun po. So, for the digit 1, we will have here the value of the counter, which is, initially, the value of counter is 90110. So, i-divide lang natin yan into by 1,000. But mag-iiba lang ng konti yung ano natin. Ito, the counter minus the digit number 0, which is, of course, kung ilan yung value man dito. Digit 0 multiplied by 1,000 divided by 100. Yun yung lalabas na digit 1 dito. Ito. For the digit 2, counter minus, this time, the digit 0 multiplied, or, mali ako dito. Counter minus digit 0 multiplied by 100, or 1,000, minus, na ba to? Digit 1, ito to. Multiplied by 100 divided by 10. That's for the digit 2. For the digit number 3, the counter will now be multiplied by 1,000 minus the digit 1 multiplied by 100 and minus kung ano yung value ni digit 2 kanina. Yan. Okay. I think okay na yan. Gagana na yan mamaya. That will work. I am actually sure of that. So here, tawagin natin si segment. Write segment array to digit. Anong ilalagay natin dito? Yung segments na. Yung per digit siya. So num underscore array, which is digital 0. Or, digit pala. Digit 0 with a value of 0. Tama ba yan? Yun. Digit 0, value of 0. Tapos, lagay tayo ng delay like na mabilis lang. 5 milliseconds. So, write segment to segment array to digit. Num underscore array. Starting from 0. So, okay. Starting num array. Saan nga ba natin makikita si num array? Ito yun. So, starting from 0 siya. So, magsa-cycle, di ba? Nasa loop tayo. Magsa-cycle yung number from 0 to 9. Yan. That's for the digit 0. Ito yun. Digit 0. Copy lang natin ito. Kapag ka sa tens digit na tayo, so this will now become digit 1. And there you go. Pagka gusto nating sa hundreds naman, ganyan na siya. Yeah? Pagka sa digit 3, yan na siya. Yan. So, 0, 1, 2, 3. Next. Check naman natin yung milliseconds. Okay? So, we have here unsigned long. We have here the current milliseconds. Let's call the built-in function in C++, which is millis. Unsigned long current millis, which is millis. Okay. So, if the current millis minus the previous millisecond is actually greater than the count up each millis, which is ilan yung value na nilagay natin kanina? Count up. Dito yan sa pinaka-umpisa. Diba? 100. And so, if the current millisecond minus the previous millisecond is greater than the 100, what will happen? There is another value here. Dito kasi magka-counter. Magpa-plus-plus. Ngayon, kapag ka na-reach niya na yung value na 99999, babalik siya sa 0. Diba? So, if the counter reach the value of max counter, of course, the counter is now 0. Otherwise, the counter will simply increment. Ganun po yan. Diba? And the previous millisecond is actually the ganun lang. As simple as that. Current millis minus previous millis counter equals max counter. Kapag ka na-reach niya na yung 9999, balik sa 0. Okay? Otherwise, the counter plus plus will increment. Ganun lang siya. Ulit-ulit lang yan na mag-increment. Okay? So, that's actually for the for loop. The void loop. Hindi pa yan tapos. Kasi, meron pa yang etong tatlong segments na to, tatlong functions na to, itong mga functions header natin. So, we have here, number 1, the void turn off all segments. Okay, we have here the delay milliseconds. We have another function which is the turn on all segments, which also have a value of in delay millis, and another function which is the right segment array to digit, which is integer multiplied by the segment array and the digit address. Oops. Yan. So, yung turn off na to, this will simply go through and set all common pins high and all segments low. Okay? So, ganun lang naman to. Pag ito-turn off natin siya lahat. Pag ito-turn off natin. All common pins high and all segments low. Okay. So, we have here for loop. I love for loop. Int I is equal to 0. I less than 8. I plus plus. We have here digital write. On lang natin lahat siya. A to D, P, pin, outs. Off lang natin pala, I mean. Initially. Seg A to D, pin outs. Okay. So we have here delay millis. Turn off to turn off. Another for loop for I per digit naman to, per digit. Off natin. On lang natin pala. All common pins to high. Okay. So this is digital write. Digit 1 to 4 pin outs, which is from I to high as well. Okay. Delay millis. Goods. Next, turn on na tayo. So, turn on all segments. Ito naman, it will simply go through and set all common pins high and all segments low as well. All common pins. Okay. So, parang yung kanina lang din, no? Yeah, low, high lang ito. So, parang kanina lang din. Okay. Pero binaliktad ko lang. Binaliktad ko lang. Nauna kasi itong si segment A. Dito ang nauna si digit naman. Okay. Parang ganun lang din. And for the right segment array to digit, patapos na tayo. We have here digital right, digit 1. Oops, mali. We will be calling first this method. Tapos yan. Dito na natin ilalagay si digital right natin. So, digit 1 to 4 pin outs. Digit address low. For in I equals 0, I hanggang 8. Okay, I plus plus. On lang natin lahat ng digital write natin. Digital write, seg A to D, P, pin outs, starting from 0 with the segment array of I. There you go. mahaba yung code nito, no? Although pinaiksi na to. Sa totoo lang, pinaiksi na to. Mahaba lang talaga siya. Digital write, segment A to D, pin outs. Okay. So far, so good. So, kapag kinapin natin yan, silagay natin yan dito as a code. Automatic. Kapag kanira natin yan, it will start from the counter. It will start from the counter hanggang paulit-ulit na yan. Ayan. Isa-isa niya muna kasing tiniturn on lahat ng digits. Tapos mag-i-start na siya sa counter natin. Ayan, 90. 10 na to. Diba? This is actually what I appreciate in programming because every time you are doing something in your code, eventually nakikita niyo yung output. But at the same time, this is so frustrating because especially if hindi kayo masyadong nagpuput ng effort sa programs or sa programming, medyo nakakalito. Medyo mababaliw kayo ng konti. But, since you have the basics or you have the basic knowledge on how to read programs, kahit pa paano, alam ko, kaya nyo nang i-determine kung saan man ang errors, saan man ang mga ano natin, di ba? Ano man yung mga pwede nating ayusin na parts ng code. Okay? So, that's actually it for the 4-digit 7 segment display. Mas madali ang digital tube. Tama? Yeah? Mas madali ang digital tube kaysa dito. Ano to eh, nakakalito. Lalo sa wirings pa lang. But, kung may oras kayo, bakit hindi, di ba? Bakit hindi nyo subukan para matesting ninyo rin on your own. Alright. So, I guess we can now proceed with the lesson number 7, which is actually the last lesson ng module 5 natin, which is the first sensor. The first sensor, the very first sensor na introduce ko sa inyo, PIR. PIR simply stands for passive infrared. Okay? And this is actually a sensor that detects a human being moving around with approximately like around 10 meters from the sensor. That's an average value, as the actual detection range is actually from 5 meters and 12 meters. PIR are fundamentally made of a pyroelectric sensor which can detect the different levels of infrared radiation for numerous essential projects or items that need to discover when an individual has left or entered the area. Ito yung para sa akin, one of my favorite sensors na pwede natin gamitin, because this sensor can simply detect the number of anything that will simply enter your room. Basically, lahat na pumapasok or maalis, kaya niyang ma-detect. Okay? Kayang-kaya niyang ma-detect. So, most PIR sensors, they have only 3-pin connection. So, either at the side, okay? Either at the side or the bottom. Itong mga to. Natatanggal kasi to, itong parang kung ano mang itsura yan, di ba? Natatanggal yan. Pwede na natin itanggal yan. So, open tayo ng panibagong circuit dito and let me show you how a PIR sensor looks like. So, kuha tayo dito ng passive infrared. Ayan. So, you have the signal, you have the power, and you have the ground. The signal is actually where you will now put the pins. The power is, of course, in the 5 volts, and the ground is on the ground itself. Ba? In Walkbee, PIR sensor, tingnan natin. Ayan. Ganyan ang maging itsura niyan. Positive, power, or the ground mismo. Ayan, VCC. Ito medyo baliktad lang ito, no? Dapat ito kasing signal na to, ano to eh. Ito yung number. Ito, in this case, yung out dito is different. Yung VCC is power. Tandaan nyo ha, VCC is power. VCC is power, GND is negative or the ground, out is always the digital pin. In this case, sa may Tinkercad natin, medyo iba ang orientation natin. Nandito sa signal. Okay? Understood? Now, this is really basic. Okay? The output will remain low until there is a motion. So, gawin natin to. This is very easy. By the way, especially the coding part, this is like no-brainer nga eh. Totoo lang, no? Kaya ako, gawin ko, kahit wag na tayo mag-breadboard siguro. Okay na yan. Dito na lang tayo. So, you have here, of course, the signal. Let me put that kay number 2. Ayan. Kay number 2 yung signal natin. Tapos, ito, si power. Si power, lagay natin kay 5 volts. Boom. Okay? So, paltan ko rin yung kulay niyan, no? Tapos, si ground, lagay natin yan kay GND. Dito. And that is, of course, black. Para makita natin kung nagre-respond ba yung pag-ilaw or yung motion dito. Let's put here an LED. Lagyan lang natin dito kay ito. Again, anode is the digital pin, cathode is the GND. Alright. So far, so good. Next. Siyempre, sa code na tayo, no? Yung code na to, madali lang din naman yung code. Kuha tayo dito ng, eto, ulitin ko to. Yan. Kuha tayo ng code dito para mas maintindihan natin. For the code of this, we have here an LED. We have here, the LED is in 13. The PIR sensor is in 2. Okay? So we have here int, LED is 13. We have here the sensor, which is 2. The initial value of the state is low. And the value is 0. For the setup, napakadali din. LED, lagyan natin yun as output. Tapos yung pin mode natin, this time it's a sensor, di ba? Yung sensor kasi, hindi na siya output, but rather than input. Nag-input na yun ng value eh. Okay, kinukuha niya na kung ano yung specific value kapag ka nakadetect ng motion. So, ang value lang naman yan, high and low. No? High and low yan. Pin mode, and meron tayong serial that begin with a baud rate of 9600. So, inside the loop, we will now be reading the sensor value first. So, let's read that using this code. Lagay natin yung value ni sensor kay val, which is actually an integer. So, therefore, like, kung ano man yung value ng lumabas dyan, di ba? Next, if the value is actually high, and if the value is actually high, we will now be turning on the LED. Okay? And at the same time, let's put here a very simple delay of 500. Diba? Next. And if the value is high, lagay tayo ng ano dyan, no? Tapos next, sa loob pa rin ng if-else na yan, if the value is low, and if the value is low, or the state, should I say, if the state is actually low, yan, initial nito is low. Let's put here a print line, motion, detected. Yan. Motion detected. Tapos, let's put the state into high. Mag-change yung state value mo dito. Okay, mag-change yung state value mo if and only if nakadetect na siya ng motion. So, if the state is high, or I mean, if, di ba, initially, mag-read siya ng ano, kung nakadetect siya ng value, mag-on si LED, tapos check niya rin initially, if the state is low, magpiprint ito, tapos ipapalit niya yan, the new value of state will now be high. Okay? Next, otherwise, if there is no movement, okay, initial to. So, if there is no movement, the LED will turn off with a 500 as its delay. And if the state is equal to high, of course, print tayo dito ng serial dot print line motion stopped. Yan. State is equal to, balik natin kay low. Copy paste lang natin yan. Lagyan na natin dito kay text. And let's see if there are some errors sa code natin. Uy, walang error sa code. So, let's see. Tingnan natin yung ating serial monitor. Nakakapanibagong walang error sa aking code, no? Ayan. So, if you click on the PIR sensor, kung napansin nyo, magkakaroon yun ng parang cone shape dito. So, this simply indicates, in real life scenario, pagka naglagay kayo dito, or pumunta kayo dito somewhere, madidetect niya kasi, ayan o, madidetect niya kung nagkakaroon ng movement. Diba? So, nakikita niyo yung serial monitor natin, every time na may dumaang tao, for example, nandito ka, tapos dumaan ka dito, na nakita ka ni PIR sensor, tingnan nyo yung serial monitor. Yun. There is a motion detect. I mean, there will be an output na na-detect ka. The movement has been detected. Ba? Motion detected. Ba? Kapag gumalaw ka, of course, motion detected pa rin yan. Ha? Maybe you would like to ask some questions, sir. Kaya bang ma-determine yung distance? That's another story. Okay? May iba rin tayo kasing sensor to detect distance. Pero just for your information, pwede nyong aralin. We have what we call ultrasonic sensors. Yan. Ultrasonic distance sensor. This will simply, determine the distance in centimeter nung layo mo dun sa mismong di ba? So ito, ang idea nito, once na nakadetect siya ng movement, ganun yung mangyayari. Okay? Nagets ba natin? I hope nagets natin yung idea, no? ng ganito. Any questions so far? With this one? O sige, i-discuss ko na rin pala tong si ultrasonic sensor. So may oras pa naman tayo. So, yan. Si ultrasonic sensors naman, madali lang din siyang gawin. Okay? This is, again, ultrasonic sensors is for determining the distance. The distance between that one or yung halimbawa meron kang ruler, no? Tapos, i-determine niya lang kung nasaan. Ilan yung distance ng object. Tapos dito. Okay? So, kagaya rin ng kanina, kagaya ng PIR sensor, we have here the GND, we have here the 5 volts, is meron ka ring signal. Diba? Sa physical Arduino kit natin dito, meron yung echo na tinatawag natin. Hindi ko lang alam kung bakit walang echo dito eh. Pero, supposedly, meron dapat echo na nakikita. Hindi ko lang sure kung bakit wala dito. Diba? And so basically the idea of ultrasonic sensor is, the schematic is very easy. Simple as that, diba? So you have the GND connected to the ground, the 5 volts connected to the 5 volts, and the signal connected to the SIG connected sa digital pin number 7. Okay? So ito, may built-in code kasi to. Pero mahirap kasing intindihin to eh. Ilagay na lang natin to dito. Ayan. Itong code na to, let's try to understand how it works before natin paganahin. Okay. Again, the physical Arduino kit, pag nakakita kayo ng physical Arduino kit, 4 yan. Meron pang echo yan. Okay? May echo na tinatawag. 4 ang signal nito. Ito kasi 3 lang. The 5 volts is actually connected to the 5 volts, the GND, the ground, and so on. Now, you have declared here a variable which is inches and in centimeter. Ayan, diba? We have centimeter. Tapos meron ka rin ditong method, diba? This method here that will simply read the ultrasonic distance. So this is actually how it will now read the distance between the sensor and to the object. Of course, yung setup natin dito na ko na nilagay, the pin mode, the trigger pin is actually output. The digital pin, the digital write initially is actually in low with a delay of microseconds, which is 2. Ayan. Now, we will be setting the trigger pin to high state for 10 microseconds kapag ka nakadetect na siya ng movement. Diba? And another microseconds for the delay, and so on. And for the setup, yung serial monitor lang natin dito. Importante kasi to na meron itong ultrasonic distance. This will simply set up everything. Now, for the loop, yung pagbabasa niya, we will now be converting the value of, the ping time in centimeter. So, initial value here is 0.01723 multiplied by the read ultrasonic distance, which is 7 in 7. Tatawagin natin kasi ito Tatawagin natin to. Diba? 7, 7. So, kapag ka ano, magpiprint na yan, na parang ganyan. Anyways, built-in yan sa Tinkercad natin. So, pwede nyo itong i-implement kasabay din ng ano natin, kasabay ng PIR sensor para ma-determine nyo yung distance. So, may dalawa kang sensors kung gusto mong ma-determine. Ba? Ayun. So, initially, ayun, kapag ka nandito ka, yan, pagka nandito ka, syempre hindi na nadidetect yan, no? Kasi ang pinaka-todo lang is 132 inches with 336 centimeter. Pero kapag ka nandito ka na sa, yan, pag pumasok ka na dyan, yun, di ba? Nadidetect na kung gaano ka kalayo. Yan. So, kung 3 centimeter lang or 1 inch lang, kaya niya pa rin ma-detect. So, the real-life application of ultrasonic sensor, ginagamit to sa, alam mo yun, sa pinaka-robotics na, yung sa yung may mga robot na. Ito. Yung mga obstacle detection na tawag dito, na output. So, ito kasi, mbot to. So, gagamit ka ng ultrasonic sensor para i-determine mo kung may obstacle, di ba? Kung may obstacle dito. So, using this one, pwede nyo nang ma-determine. I have this project proposal dati sa masters namin. I tried to propose, alam niyo yung pangbulag, yung crane nila, di ba? Yung ginaganong-ganon. Nag-propose ako dati ng project in which lalagyan dito ng ultrasonic sensor. Now, my project proposal is if this one or if the ultrasonic sensor detected a specific, obstacle within a specific range, it will automatically send a signal or a vibration to the crane papunta doon sa may mismong gumagamit. Diba? So, nakatulong ka. Meron kang problem, meron kang solution. Nakatulong ka pa sa society mo. Diba? So, that's actually one of my proposal before. Nagawa ko naman, which is actually very easy. So, try to think of some more projects in which you think gagamit kayo ng ultrasonic sensor. Pwede rin ito sa yung mga obstacle detection, mga line follower tools, mga ganyan, di ba? Hindi po yan si Wall-E, pero yeah, para siyang si Wall-E, di ba? Yan. Ito kasi mas magandang ituro to in person, like especially once we are in face-to-face classes. So hindi siya magandang imaginein lang dito, pero that's the idea. That's actually the idea. Ito, apat siya oh. Yan oh. Apat yung pins natin. Sa Tinkercad, 3 lang eh. But you got the idea, right? Arduino ultrasonic sensor. Question so far?